Have you ever wondered what would be inside of a suspicious sand block if it was giant? Cause I sure have, and today we're gonna find out. Now for the 1% of my audience who doesn't play Minecraft and doesn't know what suspicious sand is, it's a brand new block in 1.20 that looks like sand but is a little bit sus. Once you've found it, you can then excavate it by making a fancy dancy brush using a stick, copper ingot, and a feather. File that fact as important for later. Going up to the super sussy block and giving it a wee brush. Generally you get a bit of junk, but with luck you get something truly precious. It's a cool concept, not as cool as cherry blossoms, but it's cool. So there I was, sitting there, brushing sus sand, having the time of my life. But after tens of seconds of fun, I was struck with a brilliant thought. What if this was actually fun? What if the suspicious sand was huge? How would you get it? What would be inside it? Should I redesign the iron farm for the 6th time? And you know me, I couldn't help myself and got to work. As I could see it, there was a few steps we needed to take in order to make this dream a reality and to find out what is actually inside a giant suspicious sand block. Step 1. Find a giant suspicious sand block. Okay, I now realize that there was actually a smaller step before step 1, so step 0! Play Minecraft 1.20. I know that step sounds like a duh, but I'm a Wavetech member. You know, the arguably greatest technical Minecraft server to ever exist, and we only just updated to 1.19.4. My entire mod folder is in 1.19.4, and have you ever played Minecraft with the item scroller? There's no going back. So step 0 was to update my mod folder. It took an embarrassing amount of time, but with a wee bit of help from my pal Trolley, we were able to set up and continue on to the actual first step, which is, again, step 1, make a giant suspicious sand block. This was a fun challenge. Generally, whenever I build something in Minecraft, it's a bit on the large side. Gee, it's almost like I have a whole channel where I build ridiculously large structures for Wavetech. So building this giant suspicious sand block was pretty laid back. I decided to make it the old-fashioned way. I plotted out the size of the final product, plopped down a block of suspicious sand, and started meticulously translating each pixel on the block to the large cube of sand we made. Each pixel was translated into a 2x2 square, and it, took a while. Like a really long while. Stupidly, I thought this was going to be easy. I was having a good time, but then I stomped on the brakes. What was I doing? How could I forget? Was I stupid? Should I redesign the iron farm for the 6th time? I had spent so much time in 1.19.4 that I forgot that 1.20 added one of the coolest entities into the game. Block displays. Here, I set up this command block right here to demonstrate what block entities are. Wait, why is this not working? Wait, did I put the command inside it? You just got pranked, because this command block itself is a block display. Block displays are essentially an entity that pose as a block, and man oh man, you can do some wacky things with them. So I had this thought, if block entities and suspicious sand were made in the same update, why not use both of them? I put the building on hold and started learning a ton about block entities. Turns out YouTube is dry of tutorials teaching on how to use block displays. So with a little bit of poking around MC Stacker and reading articles, it's a sad day when you have to actually read instructional materials, I felt much more confident in my abilities to create a very convincing giant suspicious sand block. It's a little easier when you literally just have to type in a command rather than building something. Okay, I don't want to roast my own building skills, but like, when you compare these two, what skills? Step 1 done. Now step 2 was a whole different ballpark. Now, I'm no brilliant coder, but I have done this and that with command blocks and data packs in the past. In fact, I'm working on a huge minigame right now behind the scenes, more on that in a future video. That, combined with my brand new knowledge on how block displays work, meant that I think I knew how to make an actual function in our giant suspicious sand block. See, how normal suspicious sand blocks work is you brush them with your little doohickey. Sorry, I forgot what it's actually called. Oh, it's literally a brush. Good thing I brushed up on my Minecraft knowledge, eh? And when you brush the suspicious sand, you'll notice the sand's texture changes and an item starts to peek out of the block. I figured out how to make block displays change block states, but I wanted to make it work a little bit differently than its tiny counterpart. Instead of what's inside coming out of the block, I wanted the suspicious sand to gradually get brushed away into nothingness, eventually revealing what's inside. So I got to coding, and believe me, I've just been recovering from being pretty sick, and Dayquil does not help your coding skills a single bit. But after a lot of fiddling around, I finally got the function to work. Check this out. Here's a giant suspicious sand block. Now imagine you start to brush away at the sand, and this is what happens. I'm sorry, but did you see that? The block recedes, the textures change, and eventually the bad boy just disappears. That is that's pretty cool. I was pretty stoked that this worked. Little did I know that this was going to be really easy compared to figuring out how to generate and reveal what would be inside of the block, but hey, I was on cloud 9. Wait, I just realized. Mr. Max Mondays has 3 M's. Cloud 9 divided by 3 equals... a terrible segue to step 3, generating the sand. A giant suspicious sand block shouldn't be something you can just find out in the wild. I was watching a Cub fan video on Hermitcraft and he showed an interesting way to get the item form of suspicious sand. What if instead of crafting or trading a giant suspicious sand block, you had to compile a stack of normal suspicious sand blocks and it'd result in a giant suspicious sand block? Oh my gosh, I will not lie to you. I read over my script like 6 times just to say that last sentence. I am saying suspicious sand blocks so many times I actually cannot count. Unlike my ability to count my 3 amazing Patreons, Skeeter, Milky, and Broski. Thanks for supporting the channel, guys. Moving on. Here's what I figured out for the suspicious sand generation. First, in your travels, you need to find 64 suspicious sand blocks. Then, when they're all in your hand, you toss them onto the ground. That giant blob of sand that you just threw takes a second to think about it, and then BOOM! Huge sand block. And that's not fancy editing. That's actually what's happening. I toss a stack of sussy sand, and we get a giant block. Absolute win! With the suspicious sand generation figured out, we only had 2 more steps left in this process. Step 4, how to brush away the sand. Now for the tiny blocks we use to brush, so what could be better than a single feather? How about a whole stack of feathers? All you gotta do is commit heinous war crimes to a dozen chickens, get near one of these giant suspicious sand blocks, and start brushing it away by vomiting foul feathers all over the ground. If you did it right, the game realized that you're brushing the sand, and it activates the simple animation we showed earlier in the video. I honestly love what we've made here already. For some reason, the idea of going to a real-life archaeology site and just vomiting feathers at the ground is... it's a funny mental image. With that charming image in mind, let's move on to step 5. Finally finding out what is inside of a giant suspicious sand block. I mean, I made it, so I already know, but it's time for you to find out what's inside. You know what? You get it. Never mind. Moving on. Let me take you on a little bit of a journey. Starting out with a question. How do items get inside the suspicious sand? Well, at one point in time, an item landed on top of the soft sand, and after countless years, the sand slowly covered it up, preserving the artifact for centuries. So, after spending far too long coding, I have a second question for you. What would happen if somebody were to build something on top of the soft sand? Some of you can see where this is headed. Let me show you what I got. With this data pack, every single time I generate a giant suspicious sand block, it will create a random structure inside. Villages, igloos, shipwrecks, nether portals, jungle temples, desert temples. They look a little silly. Almost every structure in Minecraft can generate inside of these bad boys. But Max, I hear you say. Max, a stack of suspicious sand for a pillager outpost isn't worth it. Why would I waste that why would I waste the sand on that? And I agree, pillager outpost wouldn't be worth it, but there's less than a 1% chance that you would get something that is worth it. A stronghold. That's right, I'm fixing a problem that absolutely nobody has. You could finally generate portals outside of where they normally would. And there you have it, my take on how a giant suspicious sand block would work and what would be inside it. Leave a like and a comment guessing what I got planned for suspicious gravel, wink wink, I think you're gonna love it. Speaking of love, YouTube thinks that you'll love this video right here, and maybe you'd prefer to check out this playlist that explains that iron farm joke I kept making. And remember, don't be sus. Peace!